I think we're going to start it, guys. I want to be able to start on time. My name is Ed Gonzalez. My colleague is Jeff Tacy. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing at MD Anderson with Splunk. We're going to break it down in half. I'm going to do the first half, and Jeff Tacy is going to take over the second half. So we can get started. Disclaimer. MD Anderson, we're going to talk today about how MD Anderson is using Splunk to improve systems that support our patients. Patients like this man. This man was married for 49 years. He was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, given 6 months to live. And he lost his battle in 3 months. I'm real proud to say that he was my father, and he was a great man. And that's why the things we're doing at MD Anderson to improve the patient experience is really personal to me. For those who don't know, the University of MD Anderson, the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center is well respected around the world. It's devoted exclusively for cancer patient care, for research, education, and prevention. It's been established for 75 years. And within those 75 years, we've seen over 1 million patients. Every year, we see over 130,000 patients. We have regional care centers around the country. We're about 21,000 employees. We are about 1,000 IT staff. We work under the Chief Technology Officer, under IT Operations. We're the Web Operations team. We support a variety of things. Two of the primary things we support is Splunk. We provide the infrastructure, onboarding, building use cases, and pretty much the whole package, the training. The other key thing we support is the patient portal. The patient portal supports over 250,000 patients who can anytime log in and get information about their schedules, about payments. So that's a big responsibility. So that's how we started. We started about 3.5 years ago, and we started with Splunk and the patient portal because we wanted to get more insights into what was to better support our patients. And we started exploring and finding Splunk to be very useful because we were able to consolidate data in one repository and, get more quick analytics on what was going on with our system. As it evolved, we started to see more possibilities of what we could do. So we started bringing other people on board, other groups around the IT division, showing them the tool, onboarding them, and we started seeing, a movement of people who are interested in the tool. So in the end, we were pretty much using existing data that we had with a tool to get real-time data analytics. And really that's the premise of this presentation, is empowering users with existing data with a tool that gives them insights into their system. And as a whole, we're improving the patient experience. So today, I'm going to talk about the business side, the strategy. Jeff Tacy is going to talk about the results, the technical stuff, the fun stuff. So that's how we're going to break it down. So the first 2 slides really going to cover for me is going to be what we've done the first 4 years, 3.5 years, and what has changed in our group, how we evolved. Then we're going to talk about leveraging Splunk with our EHR system, the before and after picture. And then I'm going to conclude my slide with the 4 steps to build upon when we approach the use cases at MD Anderson. Jeff's going to tackle the technical stuff, how we integrated Splunk with our patient portal, and how we're scaling up with IT ops at a large scale. And then he's going to conclude on what we're really looking forward in the future to use Splunk. What is MD Anderson going to look into as far as use cases? So let's get started. So the first 2 years really were really about learning the tool, building use cases, and really building the infrastructure. Initially, we thought we were going to send developers, teams to a repository to just look at the logs. But it started to evolve a little bit, and we started getting insights. And with that experience, we started getting ideas how we could use it even more at a larger scale. And 2015 came around, we started to target bigger initiatives. We started with the PACS logging, which are specialized workstations for a radiology group. We also started our mass deployment of the agent. We wanted to be able to onboard the entire infrastructure of servers at MD Anderson, where we needed a strategy for it. At the same time, we put the Splunk agent on the VDI, which Jeff's going to talk about it. It's another project within the EHR. So 2016 came around, and everything started falling into place. We have the entire Epic. We're using Epic as the EHR system. The entire infrastructure is being integrated with Splunk. And as a result, we also had a new patient portal, and we're getting more data analytics out of that. And because of the mass deployment, we're now be able to get logging through Splunk for the 4,000 servers. On top of that, we are also logging the 18,000 virtual desktops that is part of the EHR project. That's a big step. Everybody who is using the virtual desktop, we're logging information, finding out what activity is going on, what's the performance, what's happening for that experience. So those are the first 4 years that we've been using Splunk at a high level. So because of those 4 years, a lot of stuff has happened. We started as really just trying something on our own, and we've grown. And these are the 3 things that really have evolved our team and changed our team. We started, initially with our own initiatives, but as we moved on, these are the 3 things that really put us in front of all the Splunk initiatives at MD Anderson. We started with use cases, like most of us, and then we started really integrating it with the patient portal. And then finally, we were able to tap into the electronic health record system, the project. It was delivered in March. It was the biggest IT project in the history of MD Anderson. So those 3 things were the components that really changed our team. So now we're the primary Splunk support team for the institution. Leveraging Splunk with EHR, the before and after picture, right? On the left side, there's not a lot of surprises there, right? We had silos of logs distributed everywhere, not real insights into a variety of things. We had the standard rigid login schemas. We had little to no alerting, and of course no real-time data analytics unless you were looking at the logs on the system. So those were the before pictures. Afterwards, we could actually breathe a little bit, at least I could. We were able to consolidate the 3 systems that make up the next generation patient portal. On top of that, we did some enhancements with the HIPAA logging. So right now we can do real-time data analytics to track the activities of the patient within our patient portal. And we scaled up to support the entire EHR system logging, and like I said, the 18,000 VDI instances. So today we have a robust system with Splunk that gives us insights into systems and applications for availability and performance. That's really what it comes down to. So I put this here because those are the 4 steps that have been useful for us to be able to build upon on use cases and build wins. These are the 4 steps. We look at opportunities. We looked at the opportunity of the patient portal. That was an opportunity to use Splunk. The next example is the EHR project. We were able to tap into that project and utilize Splunk, always taking opportunities. And all these finding champions, partners to work with that can use the tool. Without the champions, the partners, it's really, really hard to move things forward. And sharing knowledge, not just giving them the keys to technology, to a tool, but really investing time, sitting with them and showing them how to get started, training them if you can. And then really having ownership of the entire process. As a manager, as a leader, we make sure that we own the entire process. Without that, it's going to be really hard to move this initiative forward. So those are the 4 things that I think are very critical when you're looking at building use cases. That's the first half of the presentation. I'm going to pass it on to Jeff Tacy because he's got great stuff to talk about on the technical side.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for joining us on your last day here. It's been a great conference, and we are so excited to talk about what we're doing. This isn't going to be a highly technical talk, but I want to share at a high level what we've done. My name is Jeffrey Tacy. I work for Ed, and as he said, we primarily do web operations, and we're gradually moving into Splunk. And we envisioned Splunk as something to help our application developers. We host a lot of custom applications. MD Anderson has a very diverse computing environment. It's a very large-scale computing environment, I think, as teaching hospitals go. So we have lots of custom applications, at least in the hundreds. We have a lot of vendor applications. There's a lot of stuff to monitor. When you take a product like Splunk, the sky's the limit. We could probably index terabytes a day if we captured everything. So it's an interesting environment to work in. But what we discovered is that the value that we really have gotten so far has not been out of those custom applications so much as the larger scale projects like Epic that we were able to jump into and you might say ride that wave. And that was really where we got a lot of success. And that's the message we want to send, that there's some approaches you can take, as some of you are probably just getting started with this technology. Some are looking for more data to get. We're just going to talk about some approaches to getting there. So let me see. I've got a little agenda here. So I'm going to talk about how we've expanded our application auditing functionality. That's primarily been with our MyMD Anderson patient portal. I'm going to talk about that in more detail. And we've gotten improved patient support out of that, which has been super. That helped us with our recent Epic Go Live. That was in March. We were able to take advantage of what we did with Splunk to make that a smoother go live. So we got results almost right away with that. Deployment insights. We've got an agile development team working our patient portal. That team uses Splunk during their application deployments. We've built the facility for rolling zero downtime deployments with that application, and they can monitor what's going on with those deployments, get smooth deployments out of it. And overall, better system integrity and monitoring. That's not just with MyMD Anderson, but the VDI environment. That's also one of my big topics. MyMD Anderson and VDI are a real interest right now. Let me jump into MyMD Anderson. MyMD Anderson, as Ed mentioned, that's our patient portal. It's potentially got 250,000 users. And I think that's growing rapidly. We see 14,000 average users per day. Those are unique average daily users. And since the go live on March 4th of the new MyMD Anderson, we've had almost 120,000 users, unique users in MyMD Anderson. Now, this is not a new system by any means. It was first developed, piloted in 2001. I think MD Anderson was kind of early to the patient portal movement. Now, I'm sure you all are familiar with the patient portals that your family medicine clinic uses. In 2001, that was not exactly the most common thing. So we were ahead of the game on that, I think, and we saw this opportunity in the Splunk group to. There was an additional integration required to integrate with the Epic. The patient portal in Epic is called MyChart. We did a custom integration with that. And we had been trying to do more with MyMD Anderson and Splunk, but we saw this as the great opportunity to do a greenfield deployment, work with the developers to get the data that they wanted into Splunk, and really get an end-to-end package. So that was super. So we started out with some of the simple, I shouldn't say simple, but the things that everybody does. Let me collect my Windows event logs. This is a .NET application on Windows. Let's get the Windows event logs. Let's capture some system metrics, CPU, memory, that sort of thing. We have, again, .NET applications. We have an error handler, Elma error handler. We send that to Splunk. And what was nice is that right away, we were able to start leveraging some of the data that we had gotten in those earlier years. Ed mentioned that in 2011, we started getting or 2013, we started getting the firewall logs, load balancer logs, things like that. We were able to start correlating these things immediately, which was super. Splunk is one of those foundation type of technologies where you build a foundation, and then as you get more and more data, and you can start to get some correlation, that's when you get the real value out of it. It's great to do point solutions, and point solutions are really the way to start. But now that we've gotten some correlation, things have gotten really interesting. So we were able to do that. The big thing was the application auditing itself. In the MyMD Anderson application, every action taken by a patient viewed a secure message to their physician, viewed lab results, and so on. That's recorded. It was traditionally recorded in a relational database. It had a fixed schema. It ended up with a lot of rows by the time we got to this new rewrite, and you wouldn't be able to change the schema on that without significant work. I mean, it just wasn't going to happen. But the application had evolved at the same time over many years. So you had things like an additional info field that was being multi-purposed. So depending on the value of some other field, that meant a different thing. And over time, it became more and more complex to get knowledge out of those events. So we thought this was a great opportunity to partner with the development team. Say, what do you really want? What would be perfect for you in terms of your application logging? And fortunately, we run the operations on this application. We run the web servers behind it. So we were able to collaborate with the developers very closely. We actually worked in the same area at the time. So that was a super help. Building that partnership, that's really what got us there. We can't do it without the partnerships. There was a give and take there that was very important. But what we decided to do, we played with logging formats. We tried the Splunk key equals value pairs. We ended up with JSON, which I guess is going to be the next generation logging schema, you might say. But that's been great. Because even in the 6 months that we've been running this application now, we've evolved that logging. In fact, shortly after go live, there were some difficulties that they were able to very quickly add the logging that they needed, add additional fields. We didn't have to make any changes in Splunk. And we start getting that value right away from having that runtime schema. So that was great. What did we get out of this? I'm just going to show an example dashboard real quick. Here's the dashboard that has some activity. Here's the logins over time. At the top left, we've got that aligned with the CPU usage on the bottom there. It's a distributed environment, so we can see the status of all of the servers running it. We have some summary data like how many mobile logins do we have versus web logins? How many self-referrals do we have? That's another important feature of this application. It's not only a patient portal for existing patients, but if you're a new patient and you want to refer yourself and talk with somebody about your options, it's almost your front door, electronic front door to MD Anderson. So it's crucial that we have this application highly available and working smoothly, and that's what Splunk has helped us to do. And then just some aggregate stuff like, what are the top 10 things people do? So we have that data there as well. Again, this is JSON logging. We use universal forwarders on Windows servers to collect it. There's nothing exotic about it. Actually, nothing we're talking about today is exotic stuff. It's something that any customer can do. I don't think most customers would need pro services support for it. It's taking advantage of functionality that is really core to Splunk and doesn't require intense customization or anything. Let's see. In addition, one thing we did that came up shortly after the go live was we wanted the people who support our patients. We have a help desk called Ask MD Anderson, and patients can call, prospective patients can call and ask questions about us. One thing they do is support people who are logging in, having login problems to My MD Anderson. They wanted something where they could see the recent activity of a patient, their recent login history, their recent password change history. So when somebody calls and says, I can't log in, they can look and say, well, you last changed your password yesterday. Are you using your old password? That type of thing. We're using the Splunk API to do that. And that was sort of a shift for our developers. They were used to having this data in their application database, as it always was. They had to get into the .NET SDK to link up with that. But it worked out great. Didn't turn out to be that difficult to integrate. And now we've got this application that's not only sending data to Splunk, it's receiving data from Splunk, and the people at Ask MD Anderson, they don't know that Splunk's behind it. It just works great for them. So we're happy to have that kind of end-to-end thing going on with Splunk right now. So that's been great. And because it's not in the application database anymore, we can tell people, as long as they have a business need to know to be in there, get into Splunk, get the data that you need out of it. You're not going to slow down the application. You're not going to break the database. You're not going to do anything to it. And we've been able to open it up to more business users, and that's been a huge benefit. It's not just a developer silo anymore, the audit log. So that's been excellent. Another recurring theme is this idea that even though we collect that data for compliance, we're getting troubleshooting value out of it. We're getting analytics value out of it. We know what patients are doing. We know what parts of the system they use and don't use. So we're able to make decisions based on that. And there's a lot of overlap, I think, between a lot of the things that people put into Splunk. It often starts out as a security tool. Then operations says, hey, that's useful. I could use the firewall logs. I could use the load balancer logs. That overlap is what really makes this system special, that we can not have these silos like Ed mentioned. So that's my MDA in a nutshell. Let me see where I am on time. So the EHR footprint EHR, everything in our environment kind of feeds into the EHR. We've got networking components. We made changes to the way we host servers for Epic. It was a large-scale project, very greenfield approach to building it. We built a lot of new stuff for it. One of the things, and we had a lot of this stuff in Splunk already, but we were able to capture the Epic servers. And the big one, though, was the 18,000. And I guess there's more than 18,000 hosts in Splunk. That's just our VDI environment. That's 18,000. So that's what I'm going to jump to right away here. And I'm calling it IT ops at scale because at MD Anderson, 18,000 of anything is a large number. We have 18,000 virtual desktop instances. This is part of the Epic project because my understanding is that it's standard to have staff access these systems through a virtual desktop rather than having physical desktops that are more difficult to patch and manage. So to get to the EHR system, to support, to provide patient care, people have to be using virtual desktops. So if you call my MD Anderson the electronic front door to MD Anderson, then the VDI is the staff version of that. The way we implemented this, they're non-persistent desktops. So there's a master image, and when somebody logs in, they've got a session for until they log out. And then when they log out, these machines are destroyed and rebuilt off of the image. So deploying it was fantastic. Put it on an image, and boom, you've got thousands of machines appearing in Splunk. There's no deployment server around it. There's nothing, there's really no outside interaction with these systems. The fun thing about this one, the fun thing I thought was that when we got this project, it happened because security was blocking the team who was building virtual desktops. They were blocking them from deployment until they had an auditing solution. The machines destroy themselves right after a user logs out. So those Windows event logs, those logs of what processes someone was running, that they disappear. So using the universal forwarder, we were able to get that data in real time over to Splunk, and then we don't have to worry about the loss of data when these machines destroy themselves. So we collaborated with them on that, and of course it was smaller scale at that time. I think we were targeting 2,000 machines, but they told us, oh, it's going to be this many in the future, and we're like, great, this is going to be super. But the funny thing was, they weren't particularly interested at the time in this other data. It's like, just get the security log in there. That's what security needs, and maybe down the road we'll work with you on some other stuff. Well, we decided to just capture whatever we could. Just the Windows event logs. We didn't do any file monitoring at the time. And shortly after the pilot, after the pilot started, we think there might be some stuff in the application log that would help us troubleshoot something. Can we get access to that? All right, cool, yes, sure. And then after that worked great. After that, hey, there's this other event log that you aren't capturing. Can we pull that into and give these other people access? All right, now we're talking. And that's how we got to this point. Incremental improvement. And it's at scale. We get about 200 million events per day out of this. They're Windows events. They're kind of large events. But Splunk can handle it. It can scale out. Unlike some other solutions, it can scale out. We can add as much capacity as we need to support this. What's been really interesting is seeing the different things that we can do. It wasn't just troubleshooting or security that we got out of this. We got analytics out of it. How long does it take for a user to log in? These machines are on all flash storage. They're on pretty awesome infrastructure, but you still have to monitor it. There's a number of variables that could affect user login performance. So we were able to measure events with Splunk, and we didn't realize we could do this when we first built it, but over time, we discovered, hey, we can measure the events from the time a user logs in to the time that, for example, they get to the the EHR system, it's called hyperspace, we can measure that time. We can measure how much time it took, and we can chart that over time to make sure that when we do maintenance operations, for example, we aren't impacting the performance of these environments. And we all know system metrics only tell you so much. You can look at the CPU, you can look at disk usage and things like that, but what really matters is what the end user is seeing. And that's what we're able to get with this technology. What do we have here? Yeah, we're even able to measure between the different blocks that we have. There's 4 main blocks in our production environment that each consist of I think like 2,500 machines, and then there's an additional 8,000 in the disaster recovery site. We can monitor all these blocks individually. We'd be able to identify if there was a problem with a specific block. We could even potentially identify a problem with maybe a certain user account. Hey, it always takes them a long time to log in. Did they have something wrong with their user profile? Something in their Active Directory group membership that's causing that to happen? There's a lot of options there. So that's what we're doing at scale. And again, nothing exotic. We install a universal forwarder on a gold master image, and it's just spun up thousands of times. We did tuning. There is a little bit of tuning involved because we need to minimize the footprint of this forwarder. So we did a few things to the forwarder, nothing exotic, turning off some of the built-in functionality to only get what we need. But other than that, it's out-of-the-box stuff. And I'm sure we'll get more value out of it in the future. So we jump into the future Splunk initiatives. Clinical solutions. We're really interested, even though we're monitoring our clinical systems, there's more we could do with the data that's being generated by our clinicians and our staff. Even in VDI, for example, we have a voice recognition system that we use for dictation. So after a provider sees a patient, they go into the system, do their dictation, it gets stored. We're able to the project we're working on right now is turning on logging for that. So the actual dictation gets logged to disk. We're going to pick it up with the universal forwarder that already exists in the virtual desktop and be able to analyze that and make sure that providers are using the system efficiently. It'll help us improve our training on that system. But that's because we have the forwarder, because we have the foundation, we can do that. We can incrementally move up. Patient billing and business transactions. Billing is a very complex thing in healthcare, and we're always looking for ways to speed that up. So we're going to partner with finance on that. We're talking with our supply chain group as well. I met with them last week, so that's moving along. Our mobile applications, we're looking at the Splunk for mobile applications framework. We're already doing some HTTP event collector and some ad hoc logging with our mobile app. We have both a staff and patient-facing application. So that's exciting. RFID integration, that's really part of our clinical solutions. Also in the clinics, we collect all patient vital signs, and that goes to Epic and Hadoop today. These are actually like bedside monitors. And there's some interest in analyzing that. So we're looking at getting that data into Splunk as well. It's already in Hadoop, looking at Hunk to do that. IT Operations Service Desk, more of the endpoint monitoring. VDI was so interesting. We're really curious what we can do with more endpoint monitoring. How about monitoring printers? How about monitoring laptops? Where are these laptops going? Are they where they should be? Things like that become possible with this distributed technology. And architecture upgrades, now that the system's becoming more important, things like multi-site clustering are becoming more important to us. Now that we have the MyMD Anderson application calling the REST API, well, that sort of changes the dynamic when you're doing things like system upgrades. You're now potentially impacting one of our precious production systems. It's one of our highest value systems. So we're looking at architecture to help us maybe separate those things from the user land environment. And HTTP event collector, because it's tricky to deploy agents in our distributed environment, we think the HTTP event collector is going to be a great asset for our custom application logging. And we're hosting a brown bag session at MD Anderson in a couple of weeks to talk about that and actually offer that service to our developers. So we're moving along there. Did I miss anything? I think it's time to invite Ed back, and we'll kind of wrap up our thoughts on this.
Thanks, JT. Great stuff. I think we're going to share the last slide. Really talking about, anybody who's been starting something with Splunk. The whole presentation really was about helping those who start from scratch, and the story that we've walked through, the path we've taken, the journey of really standing up a Splunk movement in healthcare, which is in particular very hard given the regulations and government restrictions and a lot of stuff. So really appreciate you guys coming in. In conclusion, guys, I think I'm going to just talk about these 5 things that really has helped us: having a vision, being able to articulate that vision to stakeholders, to upper management, having that buy-in from that CIO and other leaders, and having true ownership of what you're trying to do. Sometimes it's owning this initiative from start to finish, and having partners. It's a key to anything. Having that technical guy who's really interested in trying to do something in his area, bring him on board. And having opportunities, again, like the EHR, MyPatient, wherever you see Splunk being inserted of value, you're going to let these technical folks gravitate that and pull it and find some solutions. And then just build wins. Sometimes use cases are going to not work. Get another one. There's always some around. Did you want to speak a little bit about this?
Well, that last point's a good one. That we were just talking about that last night, that you have to have a number of things in flight sometimes, particularly in a complex organization. And man, we're complex. We've got a lot of federated IT. You're going to start a project, and it's going to potentially sit, or there's going to be a problem getting the data that you want. It's important to have solid project management and a way to keep all these things in flight. So you're working on VDI one week, you're working on getting badge readers, or maybe that big data vital sign stuff going. It takes some organization for sure. The sky's the limit on this. You'll never be done collecting data with Splunk.
Yeah, the guys get after me sometimes because I'm always knocking at doors trying to find what use cases out there. Some don't work, some might, like the badge reader. We can do something with the badge reader for the UTPD, who MD Anderson also manages. So, well, let's find that. And then we'll just tie that with the logs from these cameras. Or let's tie this up with the garage reader. All these capabilities, we're always all over. So I'm over there walking the idea and trying to get more use cases. The guy's always like, well, I don't know, this is not going to work. But it's just trying stuff. You just got to, it's fun. That's what Splunk is all about. It makes it fun to try something and see if it works.
Yeah, that's true. It is fun technology. It feels so fresh. It's something, and there's a lot of technical stuff, especially at scale, but it's really exciting to work with. And yeah, Ed's right. We're like, I don't know about that. I'm usually the one like, do we really need that? Is that our top priority right now? And being able to prioritize those projects is super important. But on the other hand, you never really know. Like, we never expected the virtual desktop data. We thought it would be good. We didn't realize it would be as good as what we got, and that we'd be able to get so much value out of it. I really got to put in a plug for the endpoint monitoring. I think that is a really interesting area. I understand a lot of people, us included, we start out with, let me get my firewall logs, let me get my proxy logs, and things like that. Yeah, that's kind of straightforward stuff to get. It's well known. But what's interesting is sometimes what's outside of the data center, what your users are interacting with, because their experience is really important. At MD Anderson, that provider experience, it feeds into the patient experience. If our providers aren't having a good time with the system and they're having login delays or whatever, they're not able to serve our patients the way we want them to. So monitoring that experience is really important.
Definitely. We're always trying new stuff. Like JT said, in the future, finding that new champion across the street, a physician in clinical operations. That's what I'm already looking at. Some doctors who really need these kind of tools to improve their areas. So don't be afraid to go knock at those doors and find those opportunities. We are, and hopefully we'll be presenting next time on something new. So I really appreciate you guys coming over. I've concluded my part. I really appreciate you guys coming and listening to our presentation. Hopefully this helps.
Yes, we really appreciate it. This has been a great conference, and we're glad you joined us. We do have 5 minutes for questions. If anybody wants to jump in the back.
You're touching a lot of systems with patient data. Did you have to do anything specific with your Splunk environment or HIPAA requirements?
So we have a risk assessment process at MD Anderson. They go by state policy, state and institutional policy to hold us to certain things, and definitely, yeah, we had to make sure that we had a process for granting access to that patient data. The MD Anderson audit logs, they don't have like diagnosis information or anything like that, but they definitely have identifiable information, like what IP address people are coming from and what MRN they have. And we just use the built-in Splunk access controls for that. Compliance was satisfied that Splunk has audit logging built in, so we can identify if somebody's doing an improper search, maybe for a particular MRN or something like that. I think we'll see more movement on that, actually. We have a system that actually is designed to identify if staff are looking at medical records that they shouldn't. And we haven't integrated the Splunk with that quite yet. But no, we've just done the standard Splunk audit log. We have to retain that data for a certain amount of time, so we've worked with them on the retention of it. But we're using the index-based access controls. I don't think we would do like a search role filter or something like that for it. That's something we really want to isolate. But we're not interested at this time in separating the environments and having like a HIPAA or a non-HIPAA environment. We really want to keep everything together because this technology works better when you can scale it as a unit. Yes?
Repeat the question.
The question was, how big is our license and how many indexers? The license is an interesting question because in the University of Texas system, we have an unlimited license, and it is shared out across the system. So we kind of pay a part of the license, and we're unlimited indexing. I think we're up to over a terabyte a day. We do have two instances. We have a security instance, and then we have an operations instance. Between those two, we're over a terabyte a day, is my understanding. Our environment for operations, we run 4 indexers in a standard indexer cluster. The hardware is not exotic. It's HPDL on shared storage, shared SAN storage. So we didn't have to do anything exotic. However, I'm looking to get some of that flash storage that they did on virtual desktops. Holding out for that.
So if Splunk's all about breaking down data silos, why don't you silo off a security instance in your IT ops instance?
Ed, do you want to take that question?
Oh, the political question, right? I might turn off my mic.
Oops, doesn't work.
No, actually, guys, we introduced Splunk to MD Anderson. One of the first customers was information security. They came up to us and they said, guys, we need this. We said, all right, we'll set you up on the Splunk. We'll get you going. Great. And then they found value on it, and we didn't hear back from them for a while. And we found out later that they had stood up their own environment. And we asked them, I went, wait, what happened? Did you do something wrong? Did I do something wrong? There was nothing we did wrong. They felt that they wanted to take it upon themselves to run with it a little bit and build their own. And at the time, we bit our tongue a little bit. But But we weren't able to stop that. And but what's funny about it is that 3.5 years ago later, we're actually having a conversation next week to find out how we can better work together, because they came up to us and said, hey, you know what, how can we collaborate, because this is scaling up really wide on that side. So they're actually realizing that it's really operational intensive, and they really want to find out if there's going to be a one Splunk support team. They're going to be customers, right, that manages the infrastructure. So we're having those conversations, and hopefully something will turn out for the best. But we had no control, but it's coming, it's getting there.
Yes.
I understand you're using the VDI logs. Are you also going into Epic and getting their application logs too? Is that the next step? How are you getting the business data as well as the technical data?
Question is, are we getting business data out of Epic as well as technical? We are not today collecting anything from the Epic databases in Splunk. And in fact, we have a lot of work to do on the Epic application, like the system side, because each component has different logging that it does. And we've been reluctant to apply a deployment server to such a valuable installation. And it's like a 9-figure project that this thing was involved with. So the idea of us having direct influence of the Epic environment is a little daunting for us. So we need to figure out a deployment approach to get all those different logs. But I think down the road, we'll get there.
I think you're right, and it's more complex than that. There's specific technical ownerships of different components with Epic, which is, it's just a big landscape. You know, we can't just say, are you going to do this? It's so huge. It'll take a while.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar. I was wondering if you cracked that.
We're trying to. We talked to one of the architects about being able to track the web services. Epic has those modules behind the scenes. Finding, well, how can we log those things? How can we help you? But it's going to take a while. Yeah. Any other questions?
David.
Are you doing any kind of chargeback or showback to the constituency that you support with Splunk or any of the groups? Are you looking at that?
At MD Anderson, IT is like a commodity that is not charged back unless you need something exotic. Like if somebody had if they told us they were going to have 2 terabytes a day by themselves, then we'd probably ask them to fund some equipment for it. But typically we build stuff for the common good at MD Anderson, and like virtual machines, you just request them and they're free. Somebody else absorbs it, and
it's unlimited. Yeah.
It's just simpler that way. And maybe someday it'll change as the system evolves. I think there's like over 5,000 VMs now, yeah. So you can sprawl. But no, we're not looking at chargebacks right now. We're trying to get the technology still off the ground. I think not off the ground, but take it to the next level before we start saying, okay, now pay up. Yes.
Are you doing anything with Splunk for meaningful use?
Not today. It's well, to be honest, it's not on our radar. But I'm thinking that the data that we were collecting in MD Anderson already will at least demonstrate patient portal use. I think it's not really my area, but I believe there's some requirement to have a certain amount of patient portal use. And now, I mentioned that new patients log into MD Anderson to do their self-referral. So you really get an ID in that system from your first contact. So I think we're actually in pretty good shape. And yeah, I guess we could prove that with the MD Anderson logs, but we haven't done anything formal with it today. Sir?
Do you guys do anything specifically with laboratory operations?
How specific is that?
I'm on the lab side. I would work for a laboratory, so I wanted to kind of see what you guys were doing today, like to deliver to those folks that are in the laboratory operations side. I'm trying to just get some ideas.
Not yet. I haven't run into anybody who's asked, But like I said, it's an open field. You know, anytime I leave my office, something can happen. So hopefully we'll dive into all kinds of areas in healthcare. I think that's a possibility.
All right, guys, we have to end. We have a big session coming up, and I've just been told that it's full, so I'm expecting that we're going to get this mad rush.
Thank you.
More than happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much.